What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes always deliver the big names, and today we get to talk to a multi-Hall of Famer in the boxing world, in the MMA world. He is a VP over at the UFC for Government and Regulatory Affairs. The one and only Marc Ratner. How you doing, Mark? Good to see you again.
I'm doing real good. Hi, guys. I'm always happy to be on your show because we can talk all sports.
So we can. And the good thing about talking all sports with you is we can kind of move around and, from generation to generation of what we've seen, right? And it's been a few months since we caught up over in person, at the Virgin, used to be the Hard Rock. And two big shows I wanted to ask you about. One was the Sphere, and this one at the Intuit Dome. With now all this technology, I mean, how blown away were you? And compare that to, I guess, the old school versions of being blown away, like the old Vegas outdoor stadium and how historical it is, and obviously MSG and how historical it is. Like, what were your thoughts on these last two shows?
Well, the Sphere especially, there's been nothing like that I could have ever imagined. I went to see the Eagles there, and you too. I've been there a couple of times, and Fish of all things. So I've seen 3 shows there, but I never dreamt that we could do everything we did, and it took them months, obviously. But to have all the stuff in the background and still be able to see the fights was really incredible and amazing. There's been any venue like that. As far as the outdoor arena at Caesars, there's never been an arena for me, especially outside, like that outdoors at Caesars. That's one of the most special venues ever.
Yeah, and what'd you think of the Intuit Dome? You think the arenas are going to start to duplicate that? Because obviously the Sphere is a whole other animal. But as far as arenas are concerned, more arenas will be built. Would you like to see something like that blows you away, your senses, or does it take away, I guess, from what we're there for, and that's face punching at the end of the day and the focus on the fighters, maybe not the visuals? I don't know.
Oh, I think after the first fight, you're watching the fights if you're a real fan. I think that goes with it for sure. I think every new arena is going to try to be like the Intuit Dome, and there'll be all these arenas trying to remodel and refurbish them. So I think it'll keep going. Yeah, I think that's part of the viewing experience.
A lot of us change our minds about different things that happen in sports, and that's why I think I ask you this every 6 months or whatever it is that we catch up. But it was interesting because in the co-main event, Umar Nurmagomedov challenging Merab Dvalishvili, and I think most people had it 2-0 Nurmi going into round 3. Turns out one judge had it 1-1, but the other two had it 2-0 Nurmi, and I think the scores that were being flashed from the notable media and everyone else thought it was 2-2, with Dvalishvili then evening things up. And then Dvalishvili starts horsing around, showing off. He's very confident, I think, that he's winning round 5, even though there's time left. And remember, damage can really move the scorecards, right? I mean, I don't think he had distanced himself enough that maybe a nice 1-2 and all of a sudden your legs are out from under you. And that could have been the end of the fight. But here's what I'm getting at. Open scoring. What have you changed your mind on it, or could there be a tweak on it just so that we, the fighters and everyone would kind of know where we're sitting at, and yet something like someone clowning around can't come back and get bit in the ass?
Well, first of all, I'm against the clowning around. It reminds me of De La Hoya and Trinidad, because he started clowning around the last couple rounds, and it ended up costing him the fight in a very controversial fight way back. But I'm still against open scoring. I mean, I understand your question. I've always believed that the cornerman have got to say, look at it. It's 2-2, or you're losing 3-1, whatever it might be. You better fight this last round. And I don't like guys clowning, but I still like the iconic moment where either Michael or Bruce Buffer, you're waiting at the edge of your seats to hear either still or new. And I think that's a moment that I would always hate to lose.
It's true, because I don't know if you saw the one where Habib who is Umar's cousin, is kind of pacing back and forth. He has a feeling that he could call out his cousin's name, and then he doesn't, and he turns around. So yeah, you're right. Everyone does kind of sit at the edge of their seat for that announcement. And then of course there's the whole, someone looks up and it's 3-1. You know, you may want to not engage as much. So I hear both arguments. Yeah.
I was very impressed stamina-wise for Marab. Because he did have a lot in the 5th round. Even when he was clowning around, he was still didn't look tired at all.
Yeah. When you hear fighters like Marab say, "Oh, I hid this from the commission," is that just part of sports? Because in every sport, I think injuries are not necessarily always going to be talked about. Not everything is ever going to be known. You know, people hold cards, right, as far as like what they're doing and stuff like that. But as someone who worked for the commissions, is that something that the commissions need to tighten up in terms of, you know, checking the fighters for injuries or whatever? Or what are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, a fighter after a fight should never use it as an excuse. If you were well enough to get in the ring, and I mean, I hate that. I think there's problems when you do that. I believe that, and I can't speak for any commission, but the Nevada Commission, they check for all these things. You have all these tests, and listen, it happened to me 25 years ago, going back to another De La Hoya fight with Chavez. Chavez had a cut. Somehow he covered it up, and it opened up in the 1st round, and it was very, very bad. And I don't know how he covered it up to this day, but yeah, it's embarrassing for the commissions, and it shouldn't happen.
Mark, we have now gone through a few years of Dana White's Contender Series, and we've seen some of these guys now taking the next steps and becoming really good fighters. The coaches for the Ultimate Fighter were announced, and so what some people have said is Dana White's Contender Series is maybe taken away a little bit from the Ultimate Fighter. Have you always been a fan of the Ultimate Fighter, and what were your thoughts when you heard the 2 new coaches for this year?
Well, you know, I go back to Ultimate Fighter 1. It was under the commission. It was very special. They lived together for what was it, almost a month, and it was a different kind of show than it is now. This Contender has found uncovered all these fighters. You think about Sean O'Malley, and he went from the Contender to a championship. So I think there's so many fighters in the world out there, and this Contender has been a great vehicle to find them. So I'm very much in favor of that. The Ultimate Fighter is a TV show, and you can still find a couple from there, but the Contender turns it around much quicker. So I'm a fan of both, but the Contender is very special.
You know, we were talking yesterday on one of our live shows about, we go through the entire card and what we liked, but then we kind of ask a question like, what, aside from the main stuff, what did you enjoy? And I had told George, being able to see Frank Trigg in the cage as a referee, Chris Lieben as a judge, seeing these guys that put so much into our sport fighting wise and now coming back around and still contributing to our sport. Can you talk about you know, their place in doing that? Fighters a lot of times will say, we are the best ones to be judges, we are the best ones to be refs because we've actually fought. Other people will argue, but they're just you can always trace back a fighter to a certain camp or something like that. It gets a little gray. I think they did tremendous jobs. What are your thoughts on who makes the best judges, who makes the best referees, that sort of thing?
I was very impressed. Frank Trigg's been refereeing our fights for the last 2 or 3 years, and he's getting better and better. And I thought he was great. Chris Lieben, here you're talking about the Ultimate Fighter 1, I believe, and he went from there, and then he ended up judging for the California Commission, who I give a lot of credit for grooming him and getting him ready. And here he did a major title fight and did a great job. So yes, these are some of the officials that have gone into judging and refereeing. There's some that one of the arguments is some judges like what's on the ground, and they're not considering striking as much. You'd have to develop them, but not everybody wants to put the time in as officials. And we're always looking for them, and it's up to the commissions to develop them. In the UK, Marc Ratner, he rolls around. All the judges there seem like they're involved in mixed martial arts or grappling or jujitsu. We have a couple here in America, and I think it does give them a little better oversight to what's happening. But you also don't have to be a fighter to be a judge, but it gives them an advantage. I look at my career as a referee in the NCAA. I wasn't a real football player, but once you know the mechanics and the rules, you can turn into a good official.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, so every time when we're out and about in Las Vegas and we see billboards with the UFC's name on, we drive by that beautiful Apex and Performance Institute. I got to thinking a little bit about this particular era. So we haven't talked to you since the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. We saw how many people tuned in for something like that. And then, you have the slap fighting, you have bare knuckle. There's so many different options that have popped up as far as combat sports go. And I was curious, had all these options been around, because the UFC's been so cutting edge, but let's just say all this popped up at the same time around the era of, say, like the Four Kings in boxing. Do you think this would have hit with that generation? Is this more of this generation that embraces this type of stuff, or do you think it could have actually caught on had it started earlier?
Well, really, what you're really is talking about is social media. That changes everything. And Dana was years ahead of every other sport in a lot of ways in using social media and building the UFC. And now, there's a different kind of market and out there, and these other kinds of combat sports have they're doing business now. So I can't look back and say, well, during all the big major fights, it would have been the same. But there's plenty of room for everything, and it's the viewers who end up making the final choice. So I'm for all this stuff. I don't knock anything. When boxing has the big heavyweights fight, it's still real special. There's something about when Fury fights or Joshua. And talking about Jake Paul and Mike, I am not a fan of that. Was an exhibition. It wasn't really a fight for me. I think you got to fight 3-minute rounds, and at least that's my belief. But it did huge business, and I think it was good for boxing in certain ways.
Who do you think would have been kind of like a Jake Paul back then? I'm thinking Tony Danza. Remember the actor from Who's the Boss?
I do.
I think he used to box, club circuit or whatever. But did you know about him and his affinity for boxing? And were there any other actors or musicians or anyone else that maybe was good at the sweet science that we just didn't come to learn about?
Not off the top of my head. There was always fighters who brought a little celebrity. I think of Jorge Paez was a juggler or something, and he was he was fun to watch. And remember, in those days, if you were an Olympic champion or did good in the Olympics, it gave you that. Like Ray Leonard, he started off being the champion. Really changed how you looked at fights, and you couldn't wait to see him fight. De La Hoya came from there. So we don't have that same feeling with the Olympics anymore. Boxing is not as important as it should be. And as I said, there's so many fighters in the world out there that haven't been discovered or haven't got that chance. And combat sports are the most resilient of all sports, and I really believe they'll always be around.
Man, you just brought back a lot of memories. I think he was a rodeo clown, right? Jorge Paez?
Yeah, and he was a juggler, and
he was fun.
He was fun to watch, yeah.
So, Mark, you've been here longer than George and I have, but in the time that I came here to attend UNLV, right? And UNLV basketball, UNLV football, that was kind of like our major sport here in Las Vegas, aside from combat sports. But now, we have the Vegas Golden Knights, right? And the Raiders are here. It seems like we're going to have an NBA team and an MLB team is coming. Have you ever sat and thought, if you hadn't taken the job with the UFC, do you think you would have been a part of maybe some of this other stuff that's been popping up? Have you ever thought about what your route would have been?
No. I mean, I love boxing, and to go from the athletic commission to the UFC was the right move at the right time. But I've been able to be involved with the NFL and doing stuff for the Raiders. I'm sure if I hadn't gone to the UFC, maybe I would have tried to get involved with the Golden Knights or something. But at this time of my life, I don't have 41 nights or when the baseball finally comes, I don't want to devote 81 different nights to baseball. So, I look back, but just I'm thrilled to be where I am.
How do we keep losing coaches, and how can we stop it? I know, because I guess we're a state school, we're limited to how much a coach can be paid, but just seeing the basketball team the last 25, 30 years, have a successful season, and then all of a sudden either the players leave early or a coach gets a sweeter deal. Then, now football having a great season, you feel like, maybe it can be built on as well. Can anything be done to stop that?
I think it's going to be really tough. I believe in the NILs where the players make money. I don't have a problem with that. I don't like that it's now a recruiting tool, and that a player can, they can hold out for more money or shop themselves around. What I don't like is that all the players have become free agents after one season. That's what makes it tough. If they had to sit out a year, it would be a little bit more fair to these schools and to the fans. But you're losing players right away for more money, and it's really tough to have a good team every year at certain levels. I certainly believe the UNLV coach who went to Purdue. How can you tell him not to make twice or three times the money? You can't do that. And UNLV ended up with a very good coach in Dan Mullen, and they'll get some players. Basketball, I was concerned when they lost the first two games on the road, but they've had two games in a row that have been really, really well done. To beat San Diego State at home was a big, big win. Utah State came in here as a top 20 team, or right around 21, 22, and they beat them pretty good. I look for them to play well against Wyoming tonight, and so they play again Saturday. So I think they've gotten themselves together. What's tough is to have 6 or 7 new players every season. That's what's really tough.
Yeah, no, I hear you. When you get your salary tripled, it's hard to turn that down. But we got to figure out a way where the coach can be compensated, because you start to build something, and this is the type of city where the fans will go out and support, but I think just like any other city, when you're winning, the fans come out a little bit more, but you can build on it. But I think this city also loves its college teams and wants to get behind a lot of these programs, basketball, football. But geez, the coach thing just is frustrating.
And look at last season in football, which was an unbelievably good season. They could have beat Syracuse, and they could have beat Boise State here at home, but two of those games got over 40,000, which is really unheard of. So if you win, yeah, they'll support it. I look for a little bigger crowds now coming back for UNLV basketball. Will it ever be the same as it was in 1990? You'd have to get a big center and a lot of good players, but if they really start winning, yeah, I think you could see, maybe not to the extent we had it with Larry Johnson, but it certainly could happen again.
We were at the Syracuse game. We had those guys, and it was a bummer to lose that one. But again, when I was sitting there, and I know I've told this to you many times, all I kept thinking was Francis Ngannou versus John Jones, or John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, or whatever. It just needs to be done. And I'm mentioning heavyweights because Klitschko versus Joshua it just blew me away at Wembley Stadium. And I don't know if Jones would want to be the away team and go defend his undisputed, or sorry, try and unify, versus the interim over there. But because they have done it in a country that does have inclement weather, and now we have a stadium that would prevent the inclement weather from messing up anything, let's just do it one more time. Can't you convince Dana White? He's only a few offices over there to reconsider his stance and do one big stadium show. And then look, we'll leave him alone for 5 years. It's not like the one in Curitiba, Brazil sucked, or the ones in Melbourne, or where they're historical in certain ways, or Toronto, right?
Right. Toronto was unbelievable because we in Toronto you had George St. Pierre and a Canadian hero, so that was really special. Obviously, Ronda fought in Melbourne, which was with Holly Holm, was a huge fight. Yeah, there's certain fights that might be in a stadium, but I think what Dana really feels that for the fans, there's nothing like an arena. And could it happen? I'm just hoping for Jones and Aspinall, wherever it might be, to happen this year. And I just don't think a stadium right now is going to happen. But I don't make those decisions.
If it were up to you, would you do it in a stadium?
For me, no. Even when I go to when I'm at the Raiders games, it's a different kind of game on television. It's fights. At least you do the big screens are there, but I don't know. I don't think I would. I like the T-Mobile. This Intuit was special. So right now, I would keep it the way it is.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought for sure maybe you were on board, but it was Dana that wasn't. But WrestleMania is going this year. I don't know if you're going to get to it.
I will.
Maybe that one will change your mind a little bit. I get it. Some of the seats aren't the best viewing, but at the same time, it's expensive to go to a UFC nowadays. And I'm just thinking this might open up like the upper bowl for some of the fans that haven't been able to get to shows lately. Hey, $50, $100, get in there, watch the screen, be a part of something historical, make it special, make it a big event around International Fight Week. I don't know. It's just my idea.
Put something to it. I mean, that's why they've been playing the NCAA championships in big stadiums. For that reason, I believe. Talking about college football last night, that you'll see the college football championship here in a couple of years. It's that close. Nice. Maybe in 2027. So I think it's going to happen.
The playoffs was fun though, right? Seeing them open it up. I thought 12 might be too much. I would have been okay with 8, but still, college football playoffs was insane this year.
No, it really was. And now you going back to NILs. I think I read this morning that the commemorative of the however they call the group at Ohio State was like 20 million they had there to give away to the players.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, some huge amount. So it's a different world now, different sport, and I just hope that they don't. You have 4 major conferences. There's no reason in the world where the Pac-12 should have ever dissolved. That's really a terrible mistake by them. And I don't blame any college for leaving, but that's a real shame for UCLA to play basketball, and they have to play 2 games in the road on the East Coast. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, but I got to see Penn State at the Coliseum. And that was pretty cool, but I hear you. That's a lot of travel for these kids who are obviously supposed to be getting their education, but that's a whole other conversation now with NIL. But I did the quick math as you said it, 20 million. Let's just say there's 100 with all the different ones that don't even suit up, or I don't know if this extends to, other contributors to the team, but that would be 200,000 per player. And I'm being generous with 100. Maybe it's just 80 and it's even more, but that blows me away.
Well, I don't know if maybe that's what they have and they don't give it all 1 year. Maybe they're always building on it. They certainly had a lot of money there.
All right. Okay. I got a few more, but I know Goes wants to squeeze a few more in too.
Okay.
I got Marc Ratner here. Are you good on time, sir?
I am.
Okay. Just checking.
Mark, so what would your gut say? Since that Spear show, do you think we're closer to maybe one day doing another one or even further away?
Well, it was such a success, and it was so special. Um, I don't know, very expensive, a lot of just a lot of technical work, but it came off very well. But I have learned here, you never say never, so it's possible. I think what you're going to see here more is, besides the idea of the sphere, is someday going to Africa or South Africa. I think that's going to happen in the next couple of years. Certainly, they're looking at someday going to Madrid. So the sport keeps on growing, and you keep on getting fighters from around, and it's just an exciting time. We had a huge crowd, considering the tragedy of fires in LA. To still have 18,000 there, and to see the excitement in the crowd, it was a special night.
I'm trying to remember your office, but I'm thinking if you look to your left, you would probably see, well, it's probably blocked by the wall, but the Apex over there, it's undergoing some renovations, right?
Right.
Can you maybe share with us at the end of the day, what are some things that we can expect, maybe people who go there and people watching on TV, watching a Dana White's Contender Series, or, I know that they've started to do a couple other things there at the Apex, but can you kind of give us an overall view of what we could expect?
Well, it's going to be enlarged. It's still it won't hold a lot of people, but they'll have more food there. It'll be probably seating about 1,000 is what I've heard. Uh, they'll make some better parking in the back, but visually it's going to be pretty much the same. It's like a big TV studio, and uh, what's amazing is other sports like using it. The NFL for the Super Bowl had offices there the whole time, and it's really a broadcast center. But will be it's still going to be more for the contender types and the Apex shows, and I just don't think it'll be a lot different than it is now, but bigger.
What's that award if you look over to your right? Is that a Grammy or something?
I'm an AC/DC fan, and somebody for my birthday last year gave me a gold record.
Nice.
That's cool. I wouldn't put it past a young Marc Ratner. Maybe had some pipes and put something out. Who knows?
No, that was I did see a fight in Sydney where I went to see AC/DC outside. It's like 75,000 in the Olympic Stadium, and I still couldn't hear the next day. It was unbelievably wild there.
Hey,
Special.
Mark,
That's
on that
funny.
topic, real quick, just because when I think of that, I think of like Rich Franklin's walkout, right? Is there a particular walkout that you remember with the music and everything that just kind of gave you goosebumps?
Um, well, the most special one that I believe I've ever seen in all my days would have been when Connor fought, and he had the singer from
Sinead
Ireland.
O'Connor.
Yeah, sang. She sang the song when he came out live, and it was just a special moment. I'm blanking on her name.
Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, Sinead, and it was really a very special moment. My favorite walkout would be uh, for Uriah Faber when he comes out to California, and the crowd goes crazy, and certainly Brock Lesnar when he came out to
Wow.
Metallica was always special. So those are two of my favorites.
Yeah, those are
Wow.
good ones.
I think we would probably agree. I remember when Cain Velasquez and Brock Lesnar fought. That crowd was very pro Cain Velasquez, but when Brock came out, I think everybody just loves Metallica so much that they couldn't help but
They
be
do.
cheering for him as
And
well.
they're an LA band too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
and they're
cool.
just as good today as they ever were, and they've been around for like 30 years or more.
Can we go back to Spain and South Africa? Because this is your wheelhouse. You're the one that got us into every state, every province in Canada, and I know you've done a lot of work abroad, right? But we currently do have a champion in Spain and a champion in South Africa. So I guess, with all due respect, what is the holdup in getting there? Because both countries are we'll call them, I guess, first world type countries that have hosted major events like World Cups. I get it, in stadiums, but I'm sure they have their proper arenas as well. So now that we do have those champions, don't we want to maybe capitalize? Whereas I feel like we might have missed the boat with the other three kings from Africa, that one's no longer with the company and the other two are no longer champions. But it would have been nice to possibly go to Africa then, and then. So if you can address Spain and South Africa.
Well, I do certainly believe it's going to happen. Getting the right kind of stadium, getting it at the right time. It's not as easy as it sounds, but we have a whole venue part of our business, and we're certainly looking at it. Whether it'll be this year or not, obviously Duplessis is such a big name in the sport now. And Tapuria. So yeah, we're looking at them. I just can't give you a timeline exactly, but it would be special.
What are the challenges that make it difficult, or that make it, so that it does take time?
Getting it at the right time on our calendar and getting the right availability of a stadium or an arena. It sounds easy, but it's not. And as I say, we have a complete group of people that work on it. And now that we're with our sister company, WWE, we like to have maybe on a Saturday night a UFC, and maybe on a Monday night Raw, something like that. I think in some of these foreign countries are looking at that. And when we go to Saudi in the next 2 weeks, you're going to have a slap the night before our Saudi fight. So there's all kinds of things that come into play.
Mm-hmm. Do you think in 2025 we can go to either one of those two countries I mentioned, or are we looking beyond that?
I'm hoping, I'm only speaking that what I'm hoping for, but I think there's a possibility of 2025 one of those could happen. Yes.
Let me ask you just some rapid fire here.
Okay.
In your opinion, who is the best lightweight of all time? Now, Islam Makhachev just got his 4th title defense, and you probably know all these, but I'll say it because there's fans that obviously tune in and they might not be. So BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, Benson Henderson, and Khabib Nurmagomedov all had 3 title defenses. Islam just broke it with 4. My stance is, to me, it's still Khabib, because being undefeated is pretty special. And so being undefeated, I think, maybe fights off that extra title defense, because Islam does have the one loss. He was knocked out by Adriano Martins way early in his career. So I still hold on to Khabib. But I'm also of the opinion that if Khabib adds another one or two, at some point the loss gets overridden. And I think I stand with the others that already have Islam Makhachev. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Islam is very special. Obviously, it looked like he was effortlessly putting this choke on. I'm not as knowledgeable how they can do it that quickly, but he certainly did it. So I go back to BJ Penn. People forget how good he was at a young age. And all the ones you mentioned, Frankie Edgar is really special. And it's different eras. You don't want to be a creature of the moment, but I thought Islam was very special. But Khabib, I would have liked to have seen him fight a little bit longer, another couple defenses. But you're talking about just shades. They're all very close. But I don't want to ever forget the beginning with the BJ Penn. But I think right now, either Khabib or Islam are the 2 best.
You gonna give us a 1-2 there, or you're just gonna leave it at 1A, 1B?
I'll stay with Khabib right now.
Yes, he agrees with me, because a lot of people have been going against me, and to have an OG like Marc Ratner agree with me, I love it. Okay, here's the next one. Who's the pound for pound best fighter, number 1 fighter currently? And then who's the pound for pound best fighter of all time in MMA? And it might be the same guy, I don't know, but what are your thoughts?
When you asked me about lightweights before we talked MMA, I immediately thought of Julio Cesar Chavez at lightweight was one of the best ever. So that's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Pound for pound is really, really a tough thing. Uh, I look at John Jones as being the pound for pound best right now,
I agree
considering
too.
uh, considering how he came back and gained it and become a heavyweight. He's very special.
Yeah, I feel like he's never lost because he does have one technical loss, but
Yeah,
I don't feel he
technically.
got his ass kicked, So I feel like he's undefeated. And although Islam and Poatan Pajeda are gaining, I think it's still John Jones of all time and currently. All right, here's the next one.
Okay.
Um, who is the baddest man on the planet right now, in your opinion? Now, it could be a boxer, it
Yeah.
could be a MMA fighter or something like that. Whoever.
Well, certainly in Tyson's prime, he was the baddest guy. I mean, he intimidated everybody before they got in the ring, and I think of Michael Spinks with him. In this day and age, it's such a fine line. Once again, it will be really hard for any heavyweight, and we'll see what Aspinall if they fight John Jones. But I still make John Jones the baddest guy of them all.
Okay. Do you think that fight happens, by the way? Jones and Aspinall?
I think so. Yeah, I feel like it could happen. Yes, this year.
That's Vegas, right?
Vegas, New York. I would say one of those places.
God, I hope it's not New York, Mark, because that means we have to wait till November.
Well, I can't guarantee those things, but yeah, that's a huge fight. And you know what? The other special place where we do fights now that draws big money is Miami. And now that fight, we're not talking about that for Miami, but that's a big market now, and it's very very good for us.
Streaming versus TV. You guys are up for contracts, and now we have a good amount of years under our belt with the streaming world. But, again, I'm watching NFL on big stations. We're all watching them at the same time. We don't have someone 30 seconds ahead of the other person, But what are your thoughts? And let's throw in what Go said earlier, that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, those numbers blew everyone away. What do you like here for the next contract? And do you side with either streaming or television?
I think you could see a combination of both. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm certainly not privy to the negotiations, but it's a very good question. I think that ESPN has been so good. You can watch almost any show on ESPN of these talk shows, and they'll mention UFC now. I like the crawl on the bottom where it's showing the results or showing these fights are upcoming. But I think easily it could be cable and a streamer. Just those negotiations are going on now. It'll be interesting to see.
Last question that I have: the new rules that were implemented. Do you like the addition of them, and do you feel like the rule set is now perfect, or can it still be improved? Like, is there something else you'd either like to add on or subtract going forward?
The sport's continually evolving. There's no question. But we put the new where we took the hands down away from the down fighter, and there's been no controversy whatsoever. It seemed like the fighters adjusted immediately. The elbows once again have not come into play. Maybe once or twice, the downward elbow. When you really think about it, force when you're going just sideways instead of up and down, those elbows are just as strong as the ones that are going straight down. So the rules, they're better now, but surprisingly, no controversies whatsoever. The fighters adjusted, the fight camps adjusted, and almost overnight. So I'm very happy that way. There always will be some people looking at changes, and us too. But right now, I think the sport's in a very good spot.
That downward elbow feels like maybe something off the fridge, like a bottle that you didn't know was there, just falls on you and boom, hits you. That thing comes with a lot of force for sure. But yeah, it seems like it's been pretty smooth, a smooth transition.
Yes, and one of the big things that other promoters can't do or don't do, having the TV screens in front of the judges is very, very important. Having the time right around the cage where you can see it, that's something that's very special, especially for the referees and the fighters. They get to know it. They don't have to look up, or the judges don't have to look to see how much time's left. They can concentrate on the fights. Little things that we do. We're doing more replay stuff. We're always looking at that. So we try to be ahead of the world, and we are.
Yeah. Mr. Ratner, thank you so much for the time here. As always, it's been a blast catching up with you. We covered so many different topics, and the audience always appreciates you stopping by Junkie Radio.
All right. There'll be someone who will tell you that Ratner doesn't know what he's talking about, but it's okay. I like being with you guys.
Not at all. We actually never hear that.
You never hear that. So, maybe one day, if you would allow it, maybe the next time, we'd love to interview you in your office, because I feel like it's a museum that more people should just honestly be able to see all the history there, everything that you've seen and covered and been a part of in boxing and MMA. It's incredible. I'm blown away every time I've been in there.
I'm looking over my computer. I can see this picture of a young Marc Ratner and Sonny Liston, and I can't believe. And that picture's got to be probably 60 years old. How much bigger in my mind he was in this picture, but he wasn't that big. So just little small things that I'm constantly reminded of.
All right. Well,
thanks, guys.
I'll see you around the town soon, and take care, and we'll talk to you soon.